Hello. In this video, we're going to be talking a little bit about describing patterns. So what I have in front of me, I have a little whiteboard. You could use a piece of paper or whatever else you have at home. I have some beads. That was what I found handy in the classroom. You could use really anything. You could use beads, you could use cutlery, you could use whatever it might be that you have in your home. You want at least 3 to 5 different types. So of the beads, I have these small, round, light green. I have small, round, dark green. There's a bit of a difference there. I have bigger ones that are dark green and round. I have some square ones. And then I have these funky blue, not quite round ones. So those are my 5 different things that I'll be using to create some patterns today, because in grade 1, the program of studies says that students need to be able to do repeating patterns between 2 and 4 different elements. So 2 being like this, 4 up to here. And in the grade 2 curriculum, it says repeating patterns of 3 to 5. So 3 being the minimum, with the expectation that students already understand 2 based on the grade 1 curriculum, and 5 being the maximum. So when we're describing patterns, we first will talk about describing repeating patterns. So repeating patterns would be something along these lines. So if I had one of these, and it's going to repeat over and over and over again. Now this one has 2 different repeating elements. So this would be a grade 1 pattern, and we would describe this pattern as having an A-B pattern. So these would be bead A, this would be bead B, and as we see, it repeats over and over. And using this, we could describe we could predict what would be coming next. So this would be an A-B pattern. We could do, if it was a pattern like this with 3 repeating elements, might look something along these lines. And maybe you figured out that we would call this pattern, oh no, an A, B, C, because now we have 3 different repeating elements. And we could then predict what would come next. Sometimes we might have elements within this repeat, so it might look like this. This would be another grade 1 example, because it is going to have 2 elements. So this one we would call an A-B pattern, because we've got 2 A beads and then a B bead. 2 A's and a B. 2 A's and a B. So that's the gist of describing repeating patterns. We would designate each different element, or in this case different bead, a letter, and then as they repeat, we would associate that letter. So this would be an AB pattern, this is an ABC pattern, and this is an AAB pattern. So the more elements you put in, the more letters you might use, and the more complex your patterns might become. So I'm going to separate these over. In the grade 1 curriculum, it is just repeating patterns. So if your child is in grade 1, you can probably stop watching the video now and just work on those repeating patterns. If your child is in grade 2, or if they're in grade 1 and you kind of want a challenge, We also teach students about increasing patterns. So in an increasing pattern, it might look like this. We might start with one element, and then we would go up to 2, and then we might have 3. And just like in the repeating patterns, it's easy, fairly easy to predict what is going to come next. So next we would have 4. So we would have 1 and then 2, 3, 4. We could probably predict that next would be 5 because our pattern is increasing by 1 every time. So that would be an increasing pattern. And it's just the very basics, the very beginning of increasing patterns that we're talking about in grade 2. It doesn't need to be anything too complex. It's just recognizing that patterns can also increase. And what that is doing is acting sort of as a bridge into starting to talk about numbers. So we can also have patterns without these elements here. If this is somewhere where your child is at, we start to talk a little bit in grade 2 about symbolic patterns, so just using the numerals as symbols. So an increasing pattern using those numerals might be 2, 4, 6, 8. We can figure out what's going to come next because we know that this is plus 2, plus 2, plus 2. So plus 2 more would be 10. So when we're skip counting, and we teach skip counting in grade 1 and grade 1 and grade 2, that's part of an increasing pattern that we're teaching. We could do this. This one would be a little bit more complex. We could do 1, and then 2, and then 4, 7, 11. So what happened here? We added 1, then we added 2, then we added 3, then we added 4. So what would be next? We're increasing this by 1. This would be adding 5. And then with that, we can figure out that our next number would be 16. So those are increasing patterns. Again, this is grade 2 only. It's only in the grade 2 curriculum. And it's just a brief introduction into increasing patterns. Grade 1s, we stick with repeating patterns. Grade 2 is repeating and increasing. So what we're looking for from you is either finding patterns in nature or finding patterns in your house. Lots of our shirts and clothing has patterns on it. There's patterns everywhere if we just kind of take a little bit of time and are really noticing and looking for that. But you could also create patterns like this. So when you create patterns and you're submitting your work to us, we also want you to describe them. So it could be like this. Here's your pattern, and you're describing to us that this is an A-B pattern. So that's what we're looking for when we're asking for you to describe what your pattern is. If there's any questions, don't be afraid to reach out and we can clarify some things, but I hope that this video also kind of gives you an idea of what exactly it is that we're looking for. Thank you for watching.